Hello, my lovelies. I'm Ginny O, the author with no last name, and today I want to talk about writing processes, pantsing, and plotting, and what's in between. So, uh, this video is because in an upcoming video I want to talk about reading series as an author, and I'm going to be talking about authors who pants versus authors who plot over series lengths and, how you can see it in the series. And I thought, I should probably do a video explaining what pantsing and plotting and plantsing is before I do a video about how I'm reading book series and whether or not I can tell that they are pantsing or plotting as I'm reading. So what is pantsing? Pantsing is the term that authors in the writing community uses to talk about writing by the seat of your pants. In pantsing, quote unquote, you don't make a plan. So you sit down, you maybe have some characters and a very vague idea for a plot conflict, whatever. You might even have a very vague idea for an ending, but you don't know how you're going to get there, and you just start writing. You don't do any research, you don't do any planning, you don't create an outline or a synopsis, you just start writing the book. And writing as a pantser, which I can't do very well, I have tried. It usually ends up with me not finishing whatever I'm writing. Sometimes, even when I have an outline, I don't finish whatever I'm writing. But when you're sitting there and you don't have a plan, and you're writing and you're doing these, character interactions that are fun and exciting and intriguing, you, the author, are basically exactly like the reader. You're learning things about these characters and the world around you and, all this information as you're writing, as you're putting it down on the page or as they're turning the page. So it is exciting. It is interesting and it intrigues you as an author to be able to do this. So if there's like some plot twist you want to do, you end up doing, it's just exciting and as out of left field to you as it is to the reader. And pantsing is very emotional, I guess, in my experience, or and other people who do it. If you can finish a book or even a series of books without doing any type of planning and just pantsing it, I salute you. You have my respect. You can be down with your bad self. So when you're pantsing, you're just sitting there and you're doing it. You're just putting the words on the page and learning things as you go. And that's the pros of it. Can be very exciting. It's very emotional. The cons of pantsing a book or pantsing a series of books can be things like you don't finish it. Or the vague ending you had in mind no longer makes sense, but you so stubborn that you decide to stick with it anyway. I've seen that a couple times. Or it can be a lot of editing to get the book to flow properly, to make sense. So there is the foreshadowing you need for that plot twist, or you got to go back and make sure all your details are aligned with your content editing and your line editing. So pantsing can be considered more difficult in that way that, you've got to do a lot of editing to make it really sing, but it can be considered easier because you're not sitting there having to do all this type of research and all this type of outlining and synopsing first, okay? So, you're just going with the flow. whatever comes to mind out of your head goes onto the screen. And it's a perfectly acceptable and valid way of doing things. There are plenty of authors who are published who are pantsers, who don't do any planning. Some of them write standalones, which pantsing is really good for standalones. And some of them write series, and it's not quite so good for series. Just let me tell you. And, and sometimes when you're writing a book or you're writing series, and you'll suddenly have this character, and all of a sudden you end up having 2 or 3 books or 2 or 3 storylines with this character you didn't expect to have. So, and it's fun and exciting, and oh my god, that was so cool, type of thing. And that's fine. That's good. In some ways, sometimes plotters can be a little jealous of that, So, oh, you had a surprise character, so you got some surprise books. Well, oh, I don't do that. Pout. So, what is the opposite side of pantsing? Okay, so the opposite side of pantsing is plotting. So these are writers who, when they get an idea and they get some characters, they open up a Word document and they don't just start writing. No. We have to go do our research. We have to create like documents of this is the world, and this is what the fashion is going to look like, and this is the politics, and this is, and here are my list of characters and their characteristics, and what they like to think about before they go to sleep, and here is my plot, and here is my, and here are the things. This is what we have to. Here's the beginning and here's the end, and this is how we have to get from point A to point B to point C to point D. And this is going to be my twist. And when you're outlining, and there are multiple ways to outline. Some people are very linear, other people have to be chronological about it. Some people like to do what is called snowflake outlining, so they have an idea and they just start doing word associations without that idea, so it starts looking like a snowflake of ideas, with little strings in between them. Or maybe you have a series of post-it notes. Maybe you're writing paragraphs of synopsises of what's going on in the story. And plotters we like to plan, because for plotters, if they don't have a plan, it is quite possible they won't finish the book. They need to know the beginning, the middle, and the end, or at least the beginning and the end, and they can work out the middle somehow in their planning to be able to feel satisfied when complete the book. So for a plotter, the satisfaction in writing the book is watching all these ideas and thoughts you've had come together and be built up on the screen, and how you're inserting these little pieces and clues for people inside the narrative, so if they're paying attention, they'll be go, aha, I was right. Or if they're not paying attention, oh no, oh my god, I'm so surprised. And then they can do a second reading and be like, oh, I see now, this and this and this and this were leading up to this out of left field thing. Or, oh my god, the betrayal was awful. Just, and things like that. And that's how a plotter gains satisfaction and emotion when they're writing a story. It's through the execution of everything they've planned up to that point. So, pantsers, I'm winging it, making it up as I go along, and plotters are like, I have spent 80 hours researching, and now I'm going to spend another 20 creating an outline, and if it's an outline for multiple books, I'm going to have my timelines and my through lines and my, and I'm going to figure out when this romance starts, and this is when the action goes. And some plotters have to go through a structure and literally plot to their structure. Or other authors do a chapter by chapter type of plotting. I don't do that. I do a synopsis plot. Like I'll just write up paragraphs and paragraphs of different scenes and then string them together, and I'm like, no, this doesn't feel tense enough, and then move things around, or and that's fine. You know, the main difference between the pantser and the plotter is the pantser doesn't have a plan, and the plotter could be over planning. Okay, the pantser might not finish because they get lost in their details and they don't know how to get to the end, or because they don't know what the end is. So maybe they're rambling, and they don't know what the conflict is, and they don't know what the opposition to the goals are. So they can't get to that end. Whereas the plotter might not finish because they get so bogged down in making sure every single detail is right, and they're getting everything planned that they just will never get to the portion of the place where they're actually writing. So, and both can get stuck on trying to make the first third perfect. Like, just going back and rereading and editing and rereading and editing and rereading. It's a very common thing. So, whereas the plotter, there's that pro to the plotting, is that you at least where the story is, beginning, middle, and end of the story, and where it's going to go. But the cons to the plotting it isn't often that anything kind of surprises you while you're writing, and a lot of times you're doing a lot of editing work before you even get to the story. So the story might be over edited type of ideal when you're plotting something. And your story might not be flexible enough, so you put in this new character and you take out a character or something that you might not be flexible enough to be able to work around that type of removal or addition to your story. So, no planning, over planning. So what's in the middle? What's in the middle between pantsing and plotting? So what's in the middle is called plantsing. And this is just kind of one of those word smush things where, here's plot and pants, and so we get plants. But what a plantser does is, actually, I might technically be more of a plantser than a planner, but anyway, what a plantser does is they will do some very rough planning, just something super basic, uh, this is how the story starts. This is my opposition to the goal, and this is what the goal is. This is how I want the story to end, and then they'll start writing from there, and they'll just let the story go where it takes them. And sometimes, like, okay, I was writing Serpent Smile, and I had an outline for Serpent Smile and my synopsis outline, and I got to the main suspenseful part of the book, and the paragraph in my synopsis outline was car chase. This is where you're going to have a car chase. I had no other details planned for this. Absolutely not. And I was going, because I was just going, there's going to be some sort of car chase here. I think, Gideon's going to be in an accident. But I have no other details planned. And now, if I was a true plotter, I probably would have had that all planned out from book one or whatever. But so I'm I can't write this scene without being able to see it in my head. Or not see it at least, but at least have some visual way of going, this is what's going to happen. So I was researching the Badlands and looking at the layout of the Badlands. Go, is this even possible? And well, I technically knew it was possible, but is it possible? And how would it would work? And what type of technology was I using? And I got there to it, and I went, oh, oh, I can use a detail from book one and have the character ask another character for something I brought up in the very beginning of book one, and now show how it actually works in book three. Let's pretend I planned that. Okay, and I'm gonna say, yes, I planned this all along. Yes, yes, but that's what a planner does. There are gonna be times when you're planning your novel and you're just gonna be like, I don't feel like planning this particular spot out step by step, and then you get there while you're writing, you're like, oh, now I actually have to write this scene. What am I going to do? And then you get that kind of feeling of surprise like a pantser does when you're like, oh, I can use this detail from my research or from a prior book or whatever to write the current scene. And that's kind of what planting is. George R. R. Martin calls his method of writing planting because he plants seeds of characters and he likes to watch them grow and change as he writes the book. So, like, he might have had an overall kind of notes of where he wanted the story to go, but he's letting the characters interact and grow and planting, as the novel progresses towards the ending that he supposedly wanted. That's his version of planting, which is a little, I don't know, it's a little more literal than what most of the writing community calls it. So here we are. So pantsing is no plan. Plotting is probably over planning, and then planting is you have a plan, but you don't have 100% all the details of the plan, so you can be surprised. In your plan is generally flexible enough that you can add characters or create um create a new story. If you get inspired by something else, you can find a place to put it in there without ruining the overall plan and structure of your story overall. I know I'm going to be doing that with the Dr. Brown story in book one. Like, I don't know how many books away it is, but I was watching this. I was watching a trailer for a movie. I was like, oh, that concept would be so funny, and I could use what's going on from book one, what was going on in book one for this thing, and that's gonna be okay. I'm doing it. Let me go write some notes. I'm gonna pants this once I get there, but here's the basic gist of what I want to happen. And that's kind of pantsing, plotting, and planting, right there in the middle. And all ways of writing a book are equally valid. You don't, and I'm not even going to add the caveat of, as long as you finish, all ways of writing are valid, whether you finish it or not. And and if you're having a problem finishing the book because you don't know where it's going, maybe that would be a time if you're a pantser to stop and try to plan or outline the book, if that won't ruin your motivation. Or if you're a plotter and you're too stuck on where you're going, it might be time to push your outline away and just start writing to see if you can get more into these characters' heads and understand their motivations and personalities more, to be able to just get to know them better, so that you can get them working into your plot, or go, okay, the plot I've had plotted isn't working because it's going against their actual motivations and the way they function, so maybe I need to rework my plot. The only way you're going to do that is by throwing your plan away and just letting the characters interact for a little while, or writing an AU or something. It's always helpful. It can get you back in the mood to write your main story. So no matter how you write your book, just write. Have fun with it. However you get your emotions, whether it's winging it, or making a plan, oh, it's the joy of discovery versus the joy of things being executed the way you want them to, or even the joy of, I figured it out. That was Serpent Smile was, yes, I figured this out. This is gonna be fun. So I hope this helps, and potentially next time we'll be talking about writing series as an author, or reading them as an author, actually. Reading series as an author. So take care of yourselves. Bless. Stay safe. And I'll see you in the next video.